Hi, this is Di, the bass playing mom. It is 4 o'clock, time to go live, and I'm finally doing it. So here I am, lots of last minute running around. I was in a Zoom call in a meeting and had 15 minutes to get this set up. My voice is a little weird today. Just a second. So today we're going to be talking about the movie Walk the Line. I also put it on the banner. And so we're just going to wait for a few people to get here, and we're going to talk about this movie. So exciting. I've got it all queued up. And so I'm just waiting for you. Oh, we've got one. Yay. Hi. So we're going to be working on Walk the Line today. So that will be our movie. Bring up the comments. Welcome. There's some spelling. So I have been watching Walk the Line since we picked it last Sunday, and I have been reading a few articles about Johnny Cash, and I even went and made myself a bowl of popcorn since we're watching a movie. I thought that would be right. So if you're here, make sure you say hi. Oh, so chewing the popcorn is going to be really obnoxious, I can tell. Hopefully you can hear me and see me. As far as I can tell, it's working. My mic check went well. Keep refreshing the screen. Did try to get you guys some screenshots of the movie, but turns out that's not a thing. So couldn't do that, but hopefully I can share my screen. Let's practice. I'm going to see. I have 2 monitors. Yep. Okay. Share screen. Nope, it grays it out. I cannot share the movie with you. So that's interesting. Well, at least we know that going in. So it's okay if it times out. So the things we're learning. So there is just 3 of us here, but we can jump into some conversation. I've been having a busy week. No gigs, obviously. Hey, Vicky, thank you. I appreciate the feedback. Sorry, I did not get back to your text. It came at like 2 minutes to 4. I was busy running upstairs and trying to get everything to work. I'm on this free trial of StreamYard. I'm trying this out to see if I like this software. I may be picking something else, but I'm trying to use something simple to do these live feeds. And so we're starting with that. Now, it took a while for folks to get on last time, so we can do some catching up while we're waiting, and then we'll jump right into the movie. I just, unfortunately, I can't show you some screenshots. Turns out all that copywritten stuff is protected. In fact, my version of Walk the Line is so old. Well, first, I still have the cardboard liner. Do you remember those on DVDs? Yeah, pretty fancy. And it is so old that it intros with like this really vicious, really interesting video warning you not to steal copywritten material. It shows somebody breaking into a car and it says, "You wouldn't steal a car, would you? Then why are you stealing movies?" And it shows somebody buying like a version of the movie that was cut for sale, like on a sidewalk. So if you're afraid of the FBI coming, they will not be coming to my house today. Oh, can you hear the loud noises? We're remodeling our house. My husband is painting the entryway today, so every once in a while you'll hear the ladder rattling around. That's just going to be part of the deal. So that is part of it. But anyway, I just thought it was cute. This movie came out in 2004, so it's that kind of era where it was like, ooh, people can copy things. Oh no! Of course, now we just stream them. Nobody has the hard copies anyway. So it doesn't make any difference. So I'm going to ask you guys some questions, and please answer them back in the chat. Oh, hi, Mom. How are you? I got Mom and Vicky. You know what's funny was when I tested the live stream, like a ton of people jumped on. I had like 9 people going, and I was talking to them. But the first like 3 minutes, it was just a black screen because I couldn't figure out what I was doing. So I don't know what happens in the first few minutes. Like, how long does it take before people jump on? Maybe they won't today because they knew They picked the movie, though. That's the thing. Anyway, I have pages of notes, of course. Oh, you see I have my daughter's mug. It is Grumpy Cat. God rest his soul. Grumpy Cat saying no. That was a good attitude to have. It kind of reminded me of Johnny Cash when he couldn't get a record label in Nashville. Mom, I'm sure you remember this era. He could not get signed to save his life, even though he was a famous musician. Turns out he was a little bit of a risk. But anyway, he could not get signed. And so he just had a billboard made and hung up in Nashville of him flipping the middle finger to all of Nashville. So this is my Johnny Cash attitude mug. So when you live stream, everything is opposite. So like when I push this, when I point this way, it's that way. So it's all confusing. All right, well, we have given them about 10 minutes. So I think we're going to just jump into it. I took some notes. So we have some stuff. And I wanted to show you screenshots, but that won't work. So that's not going to happen. So guys, when was the last time you saw the movie Walk the Line? I want you to tell me in the comments, in the chat. I want to hear in the chat, when did you see Walk the Line last? I have not watched it in a while. I mean, I don't even know if that's our copy. It might have been my mother-in-law's. Anyway, we have not watched Walk the Line in a while. And so it's going to be kind of funny to watch it after I haven't watched it. I was kind of taking a musician's angle, like what kind of bass was he playing and stuff like that, but I can't show it, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, so here we are. Gee, it's just the three of us. I'm not sure how long we'll keep at this. Let's see if we get some more. If we don't, it'll just be a failed experiment. We'll just go quietly. Anyway, so the movie runs 2 hours and 15 minutes. So it is a long movie, and I watched it like 80% of that. So like 4 hours of my life have been devoted to watching this movie, because there is an audio commentary by Jim Mangold, and he is the co-writer, director, producer of the movie. And so he did a whole commentary, which you guys used to get on the DVDs. Remember, someone from our high school class used to make the DVD extras on videos. Bragged about it at the reunion. It was very Romeo and Michelle's. It was funny. Saw it in the movie theater, not since. Okay, so since it's just us, we're going to go through this rather quickly. So I'm just going to dig right in. So you remember that opens in Folsom Prison? And I remember that album from when I was a kid. Like that album was insane. Like it was so edgy and good. Oh my gosh. So yeah, it starts with Folsom Prison. That's where the movie opens. And the director was talking about how like that last 10 years of Johnny Cash's life was really, pivotal, and how that Folsom Prison thing was really a pivotal moment in his life, where like the whole 10 years of his life culminated. And so that's why he started the movie there. And it's the executive music producer on the movie was T-Bone Burnett. And T-Bone Burnett has a long history. He is, where was the musician? He was a guitar player, a record producer, a musician, a songwriter. He scored The Hunger Games. He scored Across the Universe and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? So he's like the expert guy. He totally scored those movies. And so he's the one who scored the movie. And then we flash back to 1944. And that's when Johnny Cash talks about the whole thing of him growing up. I mean, he doesn't talk. He shows him growing up. His name was J.R. They called him J.R. and they called his brother Jack, which is really almost the same name, like Johnny and Jack being the same name. And so it is kind of interesting that his life was so enmeshed with his brother. Like they were so close. They shared the same bed and everything. And so then we have the tragic scene where he loses his brother. And we realized, it was like losing part of himself. And so, since we're doing a abridged version of this, I'm not going to do all 6 pages. I see the movie as, and the director saw the movie as a story of redemption, like a person who was able to get a second chance at his life, and that June Carter really gave him a second chance, like she was an angel in his life. But I also see it as a movie about trauma, right? So all this trauma happened to Johnny Cash when he was younger, and that's what led to him being the person that he was at that point when the movie started with Folsom Prison, because all of that trauma happened to him. And they have a saying in trauma therapy, which is, you don't say what's wrong with you, you say what happened to you. And so when you look at the movie and all the things that Johnny Cash went through, you, instead of saying, gosh, what's wrong with Johnny Cash? Why did all that happen? It has more to do with, what happened to Johnny Cash. And that's what the movie really explores. I mean, it's the first 35 years of his life. He has another 35 years that were a lot tamer than these wild 35 years. And I see that my mother says, "Who loves you, baby?" I know you do, Mom. Thank you. I'm not going to keep you much longer. We'll just talk about the movie for a little bit, and then we'll go. I'm hitting the highlights. So, what I remember from Johnny Cash was that we used to watch his show. He had a television program, and we used to watch it when I was a kid. And we didn't listen to a lot of country music, which I consider Johnny Cash kind of country. But they show him at Sun Records, which was a great place for rock and roll. But rock and roll wasn't even a thing then. So he came up with Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis, and so it kind of shows that line between rock and roll and country was kind of blurred at that point. So even though as a kid we didn't listen to country music, we listened to Johnny Cash on his show because we love variety shows, right, Mom? We watched a lot of variety shows. So at the beginning, he forms a band. They show Johnny Cash forming a band with some guys that worked in an auto shop. It turns out those were friends of his brother in real life that worked at the auto shop. And so the musicians were Marshall Grant, who played upright bass, Luther Perkins, who played guitar, and they also had another guitar player, A.W. Red Knurdle, and they called their sound Boom Chicka Boom because it sounded like a freight train. And so that was sort of their style, and Johnny always said that that's what they played because they didn't know how to play very well. And they talk later about being able to read music or not, and Johnny Cash grew up on hymnals, so he could follow the music that way, but he didn't really read music. Anyway, so where are we going to flash forward to? Oh yeah, so they do their audition, and Sun Records was not signing gospel, and that's why Johnny Cash eventually went over to Columbia Records, because Columbia Records actually did gospel music. And Johnny Cash, I heard a quote that he said he tagged his albums, so every 10th album he did was a gospel album. Anyway, I like the way in this movie the music propels the story, and that was something the director actually thought about. When we see a musical number in the story, it doesn't just stop and yes, $1 Million Quintet. Sun Records, yes, you guys, Village Theater, awesome. It propels the story forward, and it has the dynamics of what's happening on stage, which I thought as a musician was really interesting, that when you sit in the audience, you don't realize how much of your personal stuff is like playing out on stage. And we get to see that in the movie, especially between June and Johnny. We see lots of personal things playing out. And of course, in the movie, we talk a lot about doing drugs. I mean, he was on tour with Elvis, right? And since they were the first rock stars, like rock star wasn't a name and rock and roll wasn't a name, they showed one of their caravans. They were like driving to their gigs, like 5 cars full of people, and they would drive to their own gigs. So they would play, right, and then do an after thing, and then get in the car with all of their own gear, and then drive 400 miles, crash at a hotel, get up and do the same thing over again. And I think that was why the director was saying they were really hooked on speed. And so they were hooked on speed like the old Hollywood actors would be hooked on speed, because they were doing this relentless schedule, right? That sort of Shirley Temple thing where they had that relentless schedule. We don't even think about it today that you would have a van driver or a bus driver when a band is touring, and they didn't have that. Also, they didn't know about the rock and roll lifestyle, right? So we show Johnny get, enamored with June and hanging out with groupies before there was such a name. They didn't even have groupies then. And so he had gotten caught up in a lifestyle that didn't even exist prior to this, because everything was new. And so that part of it is a little bit crazy. We're going to go forward. I'm just skipping ahead because this is way too long. And of course, Walk the Line, which he wrote for Vivian, which was the actress Jennifer Goodwin plays Vivian, and she does a really good job. And that was one of the things that people didn't know what it was going to be like to have a band on the road and try to maintain a home life. Like, he had nothing to go off of what that should look like. And so his wife Vivian also had nothing to go off of to know what that would look like. And so it's kind of interesting to think about them. Kind of pioneers, but no wonder June had ended up being married 3 times, right? Her 3rd marriage was to Johnny. So this kind of living on the road thing was also new, that people were just trying to figure it out. Anyway, so then, of course, a lot of the movie doesn't have that much to do with music. It has a lot to do with June flushing his pills and his breakup with Vivian, and him trying to get his personal life together, but he was on so many drugs that he kept crashing. In my research, I did not realize that Johnny Cash had been arrested 7 times, but he only ever did 1 night in jail, and that was for coming across the Mexican-US border with a bunch of speed inside of his guitar, which was shown in the movie. Mom, do you remember when Johnny Cash was actually arrested and actually did jail time? Because with all of his songs about being in prison and in jail, he didn't actually have any hard time in his history, and everyone thought he did, which is kind of interesting that would be something that he would actually kind of brag about, but wasn't true. So that prison that he was talking about, that prison was in his own mind, right? He was always feeling trapped, even though here he was a star, trapped on the road schedule, which he talked to Vivian about that. Someone's always telling me what to do. And then trapped in that marriage, which was having its own problems. And it was like that history of losing his brother factored into him feeling trapped all the time. And so he wasn't going to feel better till he worked any of that out. And finally, after he and Vivian break up, he hits rock bottom on drugs, and he confronts his dad about how they were treated when his brother died. And it was like it was yesterday. It was really like Jack had died just the day before, when in fact it had been 15 years. And so it shows what a difference that makes, right? When you don't work out your issues and you don't work out those traumas, right? There's the moving ladder. Hi, we've got someone else join us. So we're talking about the movie Walk the Line. It stars Joaquin Phoenix, who's playing Johnny Cash, and who plays June? And Reese Witherspoon playing June, which is kind of interesting because Joaquin Phoenix has had his own struggles, some of them perhaps with drugs. And then, of course, we all saw the video of Reese Witherspoon when she had partaken a little too much alcohol before she had to run in with the police. So it shows that theme that happened in the late 1960s for Johnny Cash was still a thing even today. Anyway, so it does show that the song Ring of Fire was written by June and not by Johnny, which everyone thinks it was his song. She actually let her sister release it I think Anita is her name. She released the song, and then June, and then Johnny ended up releasing it, even though he has co-writing credits, I think, on the song. Can you hear the ladder? Yeah. And so, you know, Vivian and yeah, I know, Reese Witherspoon. Why did that take me a minute, Vicki? Isn't that funny? That took me a minute to get. Oh, and I was going to talk about the music. They, the director wanted all of the actors to actually sing their parts and play their parts. So Joaquin Phoenix, the day he got the part, said, "How do I prepare?" And the director said, "Buy guitar." And he played guitar for 4 years. From the time, or no, 3 years, from the time he got the part in 2001 until 2004 when the movie came out, he played guitar and learned to play guitar. And that was part of the thing, was to have them learn to be musicians as actors so that they would understand the musician's process, which is really interesting. He also thought Johnny Cash was so authentic that he did not want to have somebody using a fake voice, right? He didn't want to have someone else's voice. Oh, hi. I don't know how to pronounce your name, from Norway. Oh, we don't use so many consonants. Trig. Oh, well. Thank you for checking in on us. And yes, we are safe and sound. Yes, you can hear the ladder. Isn't that great? We're, you know, I've been quarantined at home. I go to work on Tuesdays. But there's nobody at work because they're quarantined at home too. So I don't really get exposed at work. My husband, who's on the ladder out there, he is going in every work day to a manufacturing plant. So that is kind of a bummer. So he just comes in through the garage and washes his clothes and takes a shower. So we're trying to stay safe and healthy as best we can. I know that Vicki and my mom Sharon are doing well with their quarantine too. All right, so, okay, so we're gonna move forward in the story here as quickly as possible. So Johnny and June end up playing in Las Vegas, and Johnny and June, their relationship ends up moving forward. Of course, he's divorced by then, and she's divorced as well, but his drugs are so bad that he actually like passes out on stage. And in real life, June Carter and her family had to finish the Vegas stint because Johnny couldn't finish it, and they had to finish it. Yeah, 3 years from casting to filming to the release. It just takes a long time to make a movie, I guess. Plus, the director was working hand in hand with June and Johnny on it before they started filming. And I don't know, you know, if you remember, June died first. She passed away, and then Johnny died 4 months later, which is coincidentally the same timeline as my in-laws. So, and my neighbors across the street. So I guess that's a thing. It's kind of sad. He wasn't really that old. He was 71. That's not old to me, right, Mom? But he had diabetes. And so it was complications from his diabetes that took him. But, you know, the heartbreak too, right? Because he and June ended up being married 35 years, which is pretty incredible. So let's see. I'm reading my notes, childhood trauma. Yeah, I'm talking about Jack like it was yesterday. So, okay, let's talk about Folsom Prison. So he wants to go in and record in Folsom Prison because he's been reading all this fan mail that he was famous with a lot of inmates. And so he wants to do the song in Folsom Prison. This was a decision that Columbia Records did not favor. Let's take one of our biggest stars and put him in the most dangerous place to be, right? Yes, Mom, 73 is young. So they put him in Folsom Prison. He wants to go play in Folsom Prison, which of course his record label doesn't want him to do. So he did what you would do now, which he recorded it independently of the record label, which I think is pretty cool. He went in and made the recording himself and then brought it back to the record label and gave them the option to buy it or just let it go. Oh, good, good. Oh, Tabitha, I didn't know you were here. Hi. You love the movie, but one says such tragic drug addiction story. I work in psychiatry and so many tragic stories. Okay, Tabitha, I don't know when you joined us, but I was just talking about a trauma-informed approach. I don't work in psychology, but I work with a lot of therapists, and we have to be aware of recovery model, right? And we have to be aware of trauma. And it seems like a lot of Johnny's decisions throughout the first 35 years of his life were impacted by trauma. His dad was an alcoholic, a lot of things like that. And so I think that is an interesting part of the movie. I, of course, was watching it for musical reasons. And so I'm paying attention to, what kind of bass. And they did play acoustic instruments at the beginning, upright bass, and then moved over to electric instruments, which, of course, that was kind of a rock and roll thing, right? Starting to have electric instruments. So they moved over to that. It turns out the part that when Johnny was recovering from drugs and June was watching him, that June's dad scared off the drug dealers was true. That's a true story. So June's dad actually stayed at the house and scared off any drug dealers that came to try to sell Johnny drugs, which is an interesting part of the addiction story, right? And, if more people were willing to make those kind of sacrifices, it might help some people. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to help people in drug addiction. We know now that a lot of addiction, right, because it comes from trauma, is something where it's statistically it's totally from trauma, and so it's something where we know that if people are able to write a positive narrative and see their times of trauma, that they can work through them. Johnny didn't have that sort of psychological approach back then, but it seems like June helped him work on a lot of things because they were really super close. All right. And throughout this time, Johnny proposes to June over and over and over again, and she tells him no so many times because she already had kind of a bad reputation in the musical community for being married that many times. That was really looked down on back then. And so she also had to worry about the girls, right? She had daughters. Johnny had daughters, so they had to worry about. They had 7 kids altogether. They ended up having all the kids told. So, that was funny. Okay, so when he proposes, one of the times, she says, "What are we going to do about all of the kids? What do we do about the girls?" And Johnny says, "Oh, it'll all work out." And she says this: "People work it out for you, and you think it works itself out." I love that in the script. Like, how many times, maybe this is my type A personality, but how many times I've been in a situation where somebody thinks, oh, it's all going to work out, and I know that I'm the one working it out. Like, I love that June said that. I don't know if she ever really said that, but I think it's a great line. Anyway, we finally get to see them do Jackson together, which is great because I love that song. And then finally we get to see the girls play with their granddad, which was Johnny's grumpy dad. So the movie stops like 35 years in, and we don't see the second 35 years, but it does have an epilogue. It says 1968, At Folsom Prison became one of the most popular selling albums of all time, outselling the Beatles. And then it says for June and Johnny, they got married, had a son. They were together 35 years playing music. June passed in 2003, and then we know that Johnny passed 4 months later after the movie was released. So, do you guys have anything you want to tell me about Johnny Cash that we did not talk about there's a lot of things we didn't talk about. So please, I'd love to hear you chime in anything you have about the movie or about Johnny Cash that you wanted to tell me in the chat. I'll eat popcorn because you can't do a movie without popcorn. I have a new microwave. It has a sensor that senses how big the bag of popcorn is and then pops it to the right level. I have no idea. I hadn't made popcorn in it yet. Watching it made me kind of sad because his life was so sad during that part. I'd like to see a movie about the other 35 years. That would be interesting to me. But, you know, that's not what you make movies out of, is it? And I would love to hear more about the musicianship that eventually happened for all of the people in the movie. That would be great. I would love to hear that part. I know that the bass player, Marshall Grant, considered Johnny his best friend, but they had a falling out because when Johnny was at the height of his drug addiction, he totally spent all the retirement funds. So Johnny ended up settling, and then they ended up friends again. But that kind of happens in bands. If any of you are familiar with being in a band, there is a lot of drama, and sometimes there's some negative money things that happen. All right, so I'm not hearing anything in the chat, so I think we can get ready to wind this down, but we have a couple of things we need to do first. Well, one. Got to talk about a movie for next time. Do we have a movie we want to talk about for next week? Our choices are School of Rock, Spinal Tap, That Thing You Do, Whiplash, Rocker, Talking Heads, Stop Making Sense, and Ray, which I've never seen. Oh, that was my brother-in-law's. So please, down in the chat, tell me which movie you want to talk about for next week. I am favoring That Thing You Do. Oh, Ray. Okay, I've got one for Ray. The American series of Basses by Fender. Is that the American series you're asking me about? The American Professional series? Or are you thinking about the American Singing? See where my mind goes? The American series of albums by Johnny Cash. I know 5 very well. I don't know the other albums as well. I'd have to look at them to see what songs are on them. But I know 5 with Rick Rubin, and that was just genius. I think that was genius. Anyway, so I have one vote for Ray. I've only seen one of those. Vicky, your movie, look at how many I own. Nobody owns DVDs. That Thing You Do is the only one you've seen. So see, this gives you a homework assignment for the week is to watch one of the movies. The Cash American recordings. Yes, I got that now. I'm sorry it took me a minute to get around to it. You can tell where my bass player brain is. I think of the American series of basses. But yes, I think that 5 was genius. I will have to review 1 through 4 to see what I've listened to them a lot, but it's been a long time ago. My husband's a huge Johnny Cash fan. We even have a picture of his grandma with June and John when they stayed at their hotel. Because his grandma was a hotel manager or owner, I think. Okay, I have a vote for Ray. Do I have a vote for anything else? Just giving you a second. In live feeds, you gotta give people a little bit of time because there's usually a 5-second delay. So if I don't hear back now, I have never seen Ray. So if we do that, we're doing one I've never seen. So that'll be interesting. Another deep dive, right? Spinal Tap and the Talking Heads. Awesome. So we got votes for Spinal Tap, Ray, and the Talking Heads. Stop Making Sense, which is the first DVD. Excuse me. Popcorn. First DVD I ever checked out of Netflix when you could check out DVDs. Oh, this is Spinal Tap. You have to have that. Oh, and then That Thing You Do. So now we have 4 in the running for the most. We have 4 different movies to choose from. So I am going to pick. This is hard for me because I love these movies so much. Since I wasn't as familiar with Walk the Line, I'm going to make it a little bit easier on myself. I think we will do Ray another time. And we'll do, nothing has 2 votes. That would make it easy. I'm thinking, I'm still not sure. I think Talking Heads Stop Making Sense, because that one is going to be the least amount of research work for me, and it has a girl bass player. I have to watch one with a girl bass player, right? We're going to talk about set direction and all of the other things that are intriguing about this one. I will plan on being here again at 4 o'clock on next Sunday. What's the date? Okay. Next Sunday is May 31st at 4 o'clock. We'll talk about the Talking Heads Stop Making Sense. It will be fun because there are some interesting characters in that band, and they're real people, so that will be fun. Yes, we will have a laugh. We'll do that one next. We'll be on for about 40 minutes, just like today. Talk about that movie on the 31st of May at 4 o'clock. And if you have any suggestions for videos that I do a new video every Tuesday/Wednesday about bass gear, etc. If you have any suggestions, I would love to hear them. She played the Mustang bass, and so do I. So that's perfect, isn't it? So that's going to be great. She plays not picking style, when I say finger style, and I play finger style too, so I like that. And I've seen some really old videos. Yeah, I am. You won. We picked Talking Heads. I'm just making it easier on myself because you know how much homework I did on about the last movie? I'll do homework next time. So we'll do Talking Heads. If you have not seen this is probably, to me, one of, and now it's only my opinion, but one of the best concert movies ever made. So if you've never seen it, I would suggest watching it next week, because I have never seen a concert movie so well done, or such great, simple and yet complex set direction and costumes. So it is a concert producer's dream, and it's free on demand. Vicky's on demand. Comcast, Xfinity's taking care of you. You can watch Stop Making Sense. You know, it's not something you have to hang on every word. So you could probably do it while you did a craft project or cleaned a room. But I do want you to pay attention to the evolution from the beginning of the movie, how the set is done. Especially if you've gone to a lot of plays, you know how sets are. The set at the beginning and the musicians at the beginning to the end. I want you to watch the evolution from the beginning set to the end set, because it is quite well done. I also want you to watch the video graphics and remember that this movie was shot a long time ago. Holy cow. I saw it in the theaters, and it was a long time ago. Boy, Google. Okay. What year did the movie Stop Making Sense? Making Sense come out? Go. Well, that's not true. September 15th, 1999 is not the date that the original movie came out. That is probably when this version came out. 1984. So it's from 1984. So it's a throwback to high school, Vic. Oh, good video ideas. Okay, let me get my notepad. Ideas for my next video. Oh, there's my pen. Okay. Getting ideas from Norway. I love it. So yeah, Stop Making Sense came out in 84. So we'll see how much held up against time, but I want you to see how they did the graphics, because you have to remember there were no LED projectors. Okay, can you talk about the JMJ series Mustang bass in the video? JMJ series Mustang bass. I'm so close to make the deal, but I don't know if I should go for the American made or the JMJ. Okay. All right, I will look at that. If you have any experience with it. No, I don't have experience, but I will do the research and look into it because you're asking. I will. It's kind of tough right now because our music stores are locked up, and we were supposed to be able to get back into them on June 1st and all the other retail stores. And it looks like our counts are too high for the virus. And so we're not going to be able to until later. But as soon as I can get back into the music store, I'm going to get my hands on some things and demo them in the music store for you so that you can make wise decisions when you're shopping for a bass, which is awesome. That is so great. I can't wait. All right, I think we're going to wind it down. Thank you so much. It was great to have you here, and I will see you next week, video midweek. Be sure to contact me if you need anything. Thanks, and bye.